All right, Eric. So thank you very much for coming on to this short, punchy interview.
Mhm.
This is our first call on or first interview on the HoloIsland News interview series. And for the listeners, we've got Eric Yang from Junto Foundation, building out a Junto social network. I'm not going to talk too much in here. I'm going to pass it over to Eric and say, yeah, Eric, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Tom. So I'm the founder of Junto. Started this project about 2.5 years ago, and grew up in Houston, Texas, and moved to New York, and I'm just working on this new breed of social media with a team of 5 right now.
Cool. And what is Junto?
Yeah, so we're creating a new social technology that's meant to kind of move beyond a lot of the patterns of existing social media platforms. When it comes to the superficiality of a lot of the social interactions that are taking place, a lot of the perpetuation of like basing people's self-worth off of external validations, that's kind of what we want to help alleviate, in addition to quite a bit of the privacy concerns that we've seen come into fruition based off of certain business models that are prevalent in the existing ecosystem. But in addition to, like, we acknowledge that technology can only go so far. So simultaneously, ultimately the goal is to inspire authenticity, right? And an agency and the freest form of human expression. And to do that, we're also growing a distributed network of physical spaces where people in the Junto community and who are new to the Junto community can kind of just come and meet each other in person and connect, and just really get a taste of that atmosphere that we're trying to bring into the digital space as well. So those are really the two kind of moving pieces, and everything is done under the umbrella of a nonprofit, so it's truly grassroots.
So it sounds like a cross. When you say authenticity, it sounds like this is not going to be the environment where everyone's trying to look good, like, say, for instance, on Facebook. Is that sort of what you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, we don't want people to have to curate a certain representation of who they are. We don't want people to feel like they have to overanalyze everything, and that, every single post that they're pushing out is being judged to a very strict degree and by visible metrics like, X amount of likes and things of that nature. And obviously, I think it's impossible to, reach a full spectrum of that. But what we can do is kind of shift the design patterns that exist today to move the medium along the line. So it is more authentic. It is a healthier relationship with technology, and it's, it can actually kind of activate the best parts of ourselves instead of, being more addictive as we see today.
So kind of minimizing those addictive behaviors. And you also mentioned that about a physical meeting space. That sounds a little bit like Meetup, like some sort of version of meetup.com, but this is linked.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound similar, or it just be meeting? People will be able to create a physical meeting place for their tribes, for their.
Yeah, so we're fleshing out the exact logistics of it right now, but so we're kind of testing things internally. Actually, this May 24th, we're hosting so we call them Junto Dens,
Dens. Yep.
Yeah, so the one Junto is based off of this wolf thing. So we've kind of taken the physical events and called them dens, and we're going to start hosting like monthly meetups in New York, just for from the team ourselves. And it's going to be a free form event, and what that means is that anyone can kind of come in. And the first hour is just for people just to kind of gather and get to know each other. But then we're reserving like an hour and a half for people to whoever wants to share anything with the community. So it doesn't have to be like a creative thing. It can be, if you're, if there's an idea that you want to get feedback on, if there's collaboration that you kind of want to spark and send some feelers out into the community, if you want to share some poetry, if you want to share some music, if you want to share, some writing, anything that you feel called to kind of, share with other people within the community, we're kind of like holding that space for those community members to do so. The goal is to create a blueprint where anyone can kind of take and set up their own Junto dens. What we're trying to figure out right now, like logistically, is like to what degree does someone and what qualifications does someone need to kind of meet in order to be under the official Junto den umbrella, and just trying to strike the right balance between making sure that the people that do start these dens are aligned without having too much overhead from as a centralized organization.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we could see a movement of dens spawning all over the world, sort of regional dens where authentic conversations can start really developing.
Absolutely, and it'll evolve out of other people around the world are going to take lead on that and be the ones that kind of host those, and we'll just support them with our resources, with our social, providing awareness about it socially. And visibility into it, and putting it on our website, and potentially paying people that lead these community things part-time, to really just make sure that they're managed well. That's further down the line, and right now we're just focused on kind of nailing the blueprint right from the very beginning, and it's going to evolve beyond freeform. It can be things that spawn organically in different kind of events that we want to host as well, or we'll have breathing room for those to kind of come into play as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned that people could say poetry or something. I mean, on the weekend I went to do a Wim Hof event, which is an advanced. You probably heard of Wim Hof, the Iceman.
Yeah,
and I basically walked through the snowy mountains in my bare feet, but it was amazing because we all came together from all walks of life, 16 of us, and one guy was saying poetry to the group, another guy was talking about how he, illegally got into the country, and it was just like this amazing meld of people, and it was the cold that kind of brought us together. But yeah, it was just interesting how any type of something really amazing can happen when you just come together and be authentic. So I'm actually pretty excited by these den circles.
Mm-hmm.
Can I? Yeah, go for it.
So that's really cool. I watched a podcast with Wim Hof and Russell Brand, and he was kind of sharing the technique. The technique. Well,
and it makes you feel really alive for sure.
Yeah.
So the next question is, there's so many different blockchain technologies out there. Why holochain? Why did you choose the holochain technology to build the back end of Junto?
Sure. So before I get into that, just some context. When I started Junto, it wasn't as a decentralized social network. Fundamentally, the first thing that we were focusing on was how can we redesign, the existing patterns of social media to have more simplicity, have more elegance, and to promote more authenticity. And then over time, we transitioned, when we saw the emergence of blockchain technologies like Ethereum, that's when we kind of identified that the spirit of blockchain, what they wanted to accomplish, was very aligned with what we wanted to do with Junto. And so we actually, were entertaining Ethereum for a while. We spoke with a few people on consensus. We, looked in, dove a little bit deeper into what we could do with it. But it didn't take us too long to realize that it wasn't going to be scalable. There are just a lot of workaround solutions that would need to take place that would be pretty heavily centralized as well if we wanted it to be efficient and not too expensive, and reach the amount of people that we want. We kind of serendipitously came across Arthur Bloch's personal website. Just researched a lot of his work on metacurrencies, deep wealth, and then all Scepter, and also eventually coming across Holochain and just reading the white paper and the few white papers that they had at the time, and realizing that, you know, the most striking thing was how organic the architecture was, how it was modeled after natural systems, and the way that they're thinking philosophically was very, very aligned, and how that translated into the technology to be more, you know, something that we thought is actually viable for the solution that we're trying to put out into the world.
Cool. And so who's currently on the Junto team?
Yeah, so it's myself. There's Josh, who's in the UK, and he's our lead Holochain developer. And then we have a lady named Dora, who runs our operations and also does some graphic design. There's Yasmin, but she goes by Yaz. She's kind of leading our grassroots community building and outreach efforts. And then there's Drea as well, who also does quite a bit of outreach and design as well.
So there's 5 of you.
There's 5 total, yeah. And
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And are you all in America, or are you working on different time zones?
4 of us are, and then Josh is in the UK, but he comes and visits as much as his, you know, visa allows him to. Yep. So, but yeah, we're not working with too many different time zones. It's just 2, since all of us are based in New York, and then, you know, Josh is 5 hours ahead, 5 to 6 hours ahead.
Okay, cool. And I mean, we did touch on this a little bit on the first question, but can you explain the raw expression of Junto? Like, you've got no likes, no follower features or count, no rating metrics in general.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to create an environment where people don't feel like there is this kind of quiet social norm that everyone's abiding to. Like, if you go onto like Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and even Twitter, and although I think Twitter is closer to more authentic expression, although there are quite a bit of improvements that could be made. But you'll notice that there's like a very certain way of posting that people feel is that they need to kind of follow, that would be popular and that would like reach a certain amount of likes. And I've experienced and both seen with friends of mine firsthand how this, you know, over-analysis of self-expression really creates a lot of self-worth issues, and then, you know, mental health issues, and just the inability to just be yourself is something that I think is a very large crisis I think we're dealing with as a society collectively. And I think that just creating a space within social media where, you know, younger generations are spending 6 to 9 hours a day on, in America at least, you know, would be something that would catalyze a lot of positive change.
And so how do you expect, or how do you see this environment, the Den, sort of creating a more authentic, you know, not feeling like you have to get lots of likes, or, you know, these feelings of less self-worth? How do you change the interface or the motivations behind the platform to make that possible? What's the obvious ones?
Sure. So, I mean, it comes down to your intention when you're building the platform. You get it?
Yep. Yeah, I did. We've got a few mozzies around.
I think ultimately it comes down to the intention that you have when you're building the platform. And when you look at existing platforms, you have people like Sean Parker, who's an ex-president of Facebook, come out and say that they intentionally sat in rooms, you know, designing the features to be like slot machines, to be addictive, to target the vulnerabilities of human psychology, et cetera, right? And so that's just a glaring, you know, a problem for us. And so for us, like, our first principles wasn't necessarily how can we have people be on Junto as long as possible. It's more of how can we shape this technology to actually empower people and inspire, a certain level of authenticity and genuine, connection. And, the obvious ones are like getting rid of vanity metrics, getting rid of the like button, so we have follower accounts, but it's not mandatory. And so it's all about giving people choice on like how they want to curate their experience. And so the default in Junto is that these follower accounts are hidden. And so you're setting a different kind of standard. And so now the norm isn't having a follower account, but now the norm is not having one, and it's an aberration to have one. And that's more for like people with high influence that need to validate, for other people to validate whether or not they're actually who they are. And then then we can move into like the AI aspect of things. Like in existing platforms, all of our feeds are curated by an algorithm that basically just takes into all your biases and just feeds them back to you, and basically creates an echo chamber of information and perspectives. And so within Junto, we don't have any AI whatsoever that does that. Ultimately, your exploration is self-directed. It's based off of like feeds that you create. So there's a collective feed, and then within that, there are specific people that you're following. But within that collective feed, you can create your own, feeds as well. And so if I want to see, I can create, one for HoloChain, and just add everyone that kind of semantically is related to HoloChain for me. In addition to maybe even going on a deeper level, like I want to see all the expressions in these specific topics from these people. And so it's about giving agency back to people, and it's also about getting rid of a lot of the commercialization. So there's no advertisements within Junto as well. It's just completely pure. And kind of transparency is something that we've been promoting as well. So when people, create an account, we encourage them to put their full name, and then they also have a username as well. And obviously, we're not going to like verify whether your name is actually you, because you may go by a nickname, and there's no, like identity verification and things like that. It's more of creating an atmosphere of trust and just giving people a choice in terms of how they want to interact on the platform.
That's very cool. I'm just thinking back to the Wim Hof weekend again. It was very interesting because we all wanted to stay in communication, and none of us could agree on a platform to communicate by where we could all instant message each other. But I can see a den would have been perfect. And so I'm going to introduce it. I'm actually quite excited that people are even discussing if Facebook's a good platform or other platforms are good, to actually have a group communication circle. It's basically really cool that the intentions behind Junto are not going to be to just create, lure you in through scientific manipulation or, addiction.
Yeah, absolutely. And the main difference is, and we're doing things that from the very beginning that would prevent us to ever go in that direction. And so right now, the reason why, the main driving force behind why these platforms are addictive is the business model of, advertising and extracting people's attention, the attention economy essentially. And so as for-profit companies that are public and they have, an obligation to their investors first, and responsibility to make money first and foremost, advertising so far is the best way for them to do so. Like Facebook is an advertising machine. And so for us, Junto is, we started off as a C corporation, but we decided to actually transition into becoming a nonprofit. Because we wanted to really establish a certain level of independence from the very beginning, and then just really embed that into the DNA, so that when we move forward, the direction of Junto can't be altered. The motivations of the team stays pure. So there's no shares in the company. There's no stocks in the company. I started Junto, and I don't have any ownership over it. It's an independent entity. I'm not going to get rich off of it. And then other people on the team aren't going to get rich off of it either. There's no voting rights in terms of based off of like how many shares that you own. And so by being, independent, we can really stay true to the vision and make sure that the decisions that we make moving forward are truly aligned with the underlying philosophy and intention.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And I mean, that certainly raises the question for me, if there's not this, for-profit business model to, you got to sell your advertising to pay your hosting and sell people's data to do all that side of it. How does Junto, how are they going to fund their hosting? And I know obviously HoloChain has something to do with that, but the technology, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So to start, we're doing a lot of crowdfunding, and we just wrapped up the Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaign, and we're getting ready to release the official version of Junto within a few months. And after then, once we have a platform out there, we're going to revisit some conversations with institutional donors that we've been in contact with, who have expressed interest in supporting us financially, but want to see something out there and want to see something that people are using. But donations, I don't think are very sustainable. I think there needs to be some level of recurring revenue that is, that you can kind of like measure and scale with. And so we're looking into implementing some sort of freemium model where there's just a free version of Junto with some limitations. To reduce bad actors and things like that, we'll probably have, limitations based off of like, you can only post this many times a day, et cetera. And that will open up, premium features for people to get full access to everything. As well as and also we're also thinking it might be in sync with a lot of the physical spaces that we host as well, some sort of membership there. So we're figuring out the business model, but it's likely going to be some like freemium subscription source of revenue.
So it might be something like Trello, where I use Trello every day, and I've never paid for it yet. There is a paid version, and that's how they fund themselves. And it seems to really work well. Something like that.
Yeah, like Trello, like Evernote. So Evernote's a great service where they only have about 1% to 2% of people on the premium feature actually, and that is able to fund their operations, and they do very well. So you can. And the CEO of Evernote kind of talks about how the free version should be great, and they don't want more than 1% to 2% of people on the premium version, because that means the free version is not good enough. So we'll definitely make the free version like this is everything that you need, but people that want to go a step further and access certain things that aren't available, and as well as support us financially, then that's kind of what the premium set is for.
No, I can see it's really powerful, because every kind of movement has their fans and then has their mavens, their real core fans, and they're more than happy to, part with a bit of change as well, whether that be holo tokens or whatever that might be. Yeah, no, that's really,
absolutely.
See that working. So I guess we've also touched on this a little bit, but how do you expect to earn the trust of millions of users? Like, Facebook has done a lot to ruin the trust of their core user base. And what are you thinking there with Junto?
I think, well, first, just based off of the decision that we're making from the very beginning, that so far it has garnered quite a bit of trust. And you can kind of feel the difference when you go visit our website, or you talk to someone on the team, and you see how, like, legally how we're set up, or the technology that we're using, or the way it's designed, like everything. I wrote an article of the design, like how everything works in Junto. And so just there's a few ways. One, we're fully transparent about everything. Our technology is open source. You can go on like github.com/Junto Foundation right now, and you can see our HoloChain application. It's visible to the public right now, like as of this moment. Being a nonprofit is another gesture of we're not doing this for money, and we're legally bound by this. This isn't us just saying that we're going to not be for profit. This is us institutionally setting up ourselves as completely independent of any investors and third parties. And the technology that we're using, it's trustless because we don't own people's data. We don't have a license to do, sell it to advertisers or do what Facebook does or other platforms do with people's information. And so, and then really growing a community in person as well, and creating that distributed network of dens like we talked about earlier. So people can actually get to know the community, whereas on other platforms it's just kind of like you're in your own pocket. It's almost a lot of the time and even if you do come into new communities, you often don't meet them in person. It's kind of in this digital space behind some level of anonymity as well. So there's a variety of moving pieces that really create that trust between us and the community as well.
Yeah. And I can also see that, because it's being built on HoloChain or this back end of distributed hash tables, you've got things like BitTorrent, which is similar technology or same technology. So the hosting's kind of really lightweight. So it's not going to be, the whole application's a really lightweight thing. So it's not going to be this heavy, clunky thing that needs lots of hosting to be able to power it, basically, or lots of expensive hosting. Does that sound right?
Yeah. It sounds right when people are running HoloChain. That sounds then we won't need to pay for hosting.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the users are hosting it with their own devices, and they're bringing a multiplier with them to help host other people to a certain degree as well. And so the network gets more and more efficient as more nodes join the network. But that we're not there yet because a lot of people aren't ready to go through that process of installing the HoloChain software on whatever device that they're running and going through those. Most people just want to visit a URL or access applications like how they're used to, which is kind of why HoloChain has been pushing out Holo, which is the infrastructure for distributed cloud computing. Essentially, it's like a distributed AWS. And Junto's we're basically Holo hosts are serving as proxies for people, so they don't have to host the HoloChain application on their device. And so Junto is going to be to provide the same level of user experience to people, so people don't have to go through any sort of bottlenecks when they're using this application versus others. We're fronting the cost of the Holo host, and we're paying for that hosting with in these early stages through crowdfunding and donations from institutional donors. And then once we have a business model in place and have a recurring source of revenue, then we're going to use that to pay for the hosting more sustainably.
Cool. And thanks for answering that question. And when can we get a demo of Junto? We've definitely seen designs, and when do you sort of, and I know that we can definitely go along, everyone listening to this, we can go along to GitHub right now and you can see exactly where they're at. But where do you start to see, you're using Vue.js as the front end, aren't you?
So that's for our web application. We're using Vue.js. For our mobile applications, which is what we're releasing first, we're using Flutter. So Flutter is a new cross-platform framework to build native iOS and Android applications with one code base. It's using Dart, and the development cycle is it's very fast, and we expect to have a demo. The demo, what I mean by demo is I'm going to record something on my laptop. But it's going to be actual. It's going to be actual code that it's not going to be mock-ups or designs. This is the code that's actually running the HoloChain environment, and it's linked up to the API, and you have all of the features being built out through Flutter. And we're going to have something at the end of May, early June, for the community there. That's kind of the goal there, is to push out that meaningful update in a few weeks, and then. We expect to have the actual, private release within a few months, and so we're moving a lot closer. And we don't need to we have a workaround solution. We have an intermediary solution before Holo is ready, because it's going to take some time for the technology to reach a stable phase. Right now, they're kind of testing things internally with their team. And for us, we have, we need to move quickly. We need to start iterating and getting feedback, and we have limited runway as well. So what we can do, what our perspective is that we're going to leverage Holochain as much as we can and continue to do so, and then eventually transition to the Holo network. But so we're using the Holochain API that we're developing, and then we're going to host it in a traditional web server like AWS to serve as like that proxy that Holo would otherwise, and we're gonna have that be available to people as a private release, and slowly bring more people on just to kind of test everything and refine everything. And then once Holo's ready, we're making that full transition to be fully decentralized. So that's
very
the
cool
strategy.
Yeah, so people's first experience of it will be either downloading the Android or the iOS app of Junto first, and then moving on to the web app.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. All right, so I think I was going to ask when you plan to launch, but I think a demo is good enough. And I mean, in that demo, or basically people's when they in that first experience when they're downloading Junto for the first time and they start using it, what are the first things that they're going to do? Like in Facebook, it goes straight to the news feed, and it shows a bunch of catchy photos of friends, and what's people's first experience, or where's their mind going to be taken, or in this den environment?
So that's a really good question. It's something we've been talking about internally as a team, because that is very important. There's one interesting idea Drea brought up, one of our teammates, that and it's not solidified yet, but basically the first thing that you see when you open the application should just be the template for like creating an expression. So you're not influenced by other people's expressions. You're not put into this like headspace of like just consumption, but one of creation, and creation in a headspace that is free and independent of other people's ideas and thoughts. And so we're entertaining the first thing being just that space for you to actually share something with other people, and just really encouraging that. We can also just another option is just having it be the collective, like this is the Junto collective, where everything exists, and it's kind of your introduction to the community. So there's that, there's that value proposition there. And then you can also have it be like your den, which is your like private headspace. This is like your profile, and like things where you have like a journal, and this is kind of like a space for you. So it's a good question. We haven't decided yet. There are a few things that we're kind of weighing out. That's one of those finer details that we're going to revisit once the crux of the application is built out.
So I just noticed that you were saying den is more of a personal space, and then you've got something like circles where you then got circles of friends, or is that right? So the dens is actually a very private place, just where you put your notes or get your whatever got sitting in your brain out of your brain, and then okay.
So basically, because we were talking about Junto Den earlier, we're also using that terminology for like physical events. So that's kind of the semantic there. But within the application, there are 4 layers. You have the Junto collective, and it used to be 3, but this is while we were, so in a previous interview, you may have heard me say 3, but this is while we were fleshing out the communities feature. But right now, it's going to be 4. And so there's this collective where everything in Junto exists. And within all expressions of kind of invest in this for however you want. So remember, we're talking about how you can kind of curate your own experience and create any feeds that you want, add any person that you want, search by any topic or channel that you want. And then there's the communities feature where it's just like specific groups, and within each community there will just be a source of expressions specific to that community, as well as having two sections, one of them being meta, one of them being sub. And so whenever you go into like the meta field of community, it shows like all the communities that community is like sub to. And so it creates an easy way to kind of explore other communities through existing communities, but giving them the agency to determine what the relationship between those communities are themselves. And then there's like the pack, which is kind of like an agent-centric community. This is more of your closer circle. So think of a pack as like, this is my community of people who I'm comfortable being extremely, open with. And so it's a more private layer. And so basically a pack consists of everything that you share publicly, everything that people in your pack share publicly, everything that you choose to share privately to your pack, and everything that you choose to kind of resonate. And so resonate's like the replacement for like button. There's more intention behind it because it gets recycled to your pack and other people can kind of view it. But the goal of the pack is to be, because we believe that people are really a summation of people that have influenced them in their lives. And so now if people in my pack can visit my pack, right? And in my pack, I'm this common thread between every single person within my pack to kind of discover each other's expressions, meet each other, but a lot more organically because it's through someone that they already know. It's like through a mutual connection. And so it's kind of this like facilitation of meeting new people, discovering new information, as well as, being able to kind of share things privately with just your core group of friends. And the den is that more private headspace where, this is a space just for myself. And so it's kind of mimicking how like real life actually works. There are like these different layers where, with the public and with people that you don't know, you're willing to express yourself this way. And then, within a certain community, you're able to express yourself this way. And then with your pack, you're able to be yourself this way. And then with yourself, there are things that you don't share publicly at all.
Yeah, cool. So people, just like in real life, people will be able to create multiple dens. Like if I go to the gym, I've got my den there. If I go to, if I've got a group of old friends, I'll create a den with them. And there might be different layers of dens and some way to click through to different dens if I'm exploring the greater, some dens are public. Is that sort of how it sounds?
Yeah. It's
some exploring feature I can hear.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be using the semantic den. Well, it's complicated to kind of grasp all of the semantic linguistics that we use. But I mean the feature. You're right about the feature. You can explore different like packs that you're in, different communities that you belong to, and you can create your own way of organizing information and create your own feeds on a broader scale as well.
Cool. No, it really sounds like a piece of software that's actually going to serve me.
I hope so. Yeah.
Will the Junto Foundation, are they planning to work in conjunction with Clutter, which is like the Twitter alternative that's been demoed up on HoloChain?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be interoperability between any HoloChain application ultimately.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the status of Clutter is right now. I haven't like revisited that, but if they're continuing to like make moves and improving the software and updating it, then yeah, I don't see why not.
Cool. And do you plan to keep Junto as a grassroots movement?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to be completely word of mouth, completely decentralized, not only in the technology, but in the way that we're funded, in the way that outreach is done. It truly is a people-driven initiative.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for those. That was like the formal interview questions that we've sort of come up with. We've also got some questions from the community. When we announced that we were going to, we were able to interview you. The community also asked some questions, and so I'm just going to go ahead and ask these on behalf of the community, of the HoloChain community. So the first question is, will the users of Junto pay HoloHost in HoloFuel in order to access Junto?
So Junto ourselves, we're paying the hosts, and it's being funded through the crowdfunding, early stage donations from institutional donors, and then eventually from the source of revenue that we get either from, the freemium model or some other business model. So people using Junto don't directly pay for, they don't directly pay the HoloHost. It's the application provider, which is us.
Cool. And question 2 is actually from Hello Citizen. Instead of vanity metrics such as like buttons, what does Junto Foundation think about allowing the users to react using a system based on non-violent communication so they can share what emotions and needs are affected?
I think it's a great idea, and it's something that we're heavily considering right now to see how we can kind of fulfill that. Just having like a reaction library that, obviously brings in that wide range of emotions and flavors. I saw someone create a pull request on our GitHub repository. So thank you for initiating that idea. We're definitely looking into it and looking into how we can integrate it into our timeline as well.
Cool. Thanks for answering that. And question number 3, will you allow users to have the ability to upload all Facebook videos and pictures to Junto and make that happen and people will leave? Yeah, okay, so they're just saying make that happen and people will leave in a flood. Leave Facebook.
Yeah.
There is a button to remove all your data, download all your data from Facebook. So
there is. It's possible. We'll likely end up giving people that choice and giving people that ability to, but no promises as of yet. We're still discussing that internally.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I mean I'm on Facebook, but when people message me on Facebook, I just don't want to message back, and so I end up not replying because I just don't want to let people know that they can contact me on Facebook. And if I did have a button that I could just move everything across and then just drag them over, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So question number 4 from Amanda DHT. What's your favorite features on the Junto platform and why?
Hello, Amanda DHT. I love Amanda. She's great. She's a friend of mine, and she's on the whole team. Favorite feature would be the pack that I was describing earlier. I think that this hasn't been done before. I think it's a very interesting innovation that we came up with. Just the notion that you're able to be a common thread of, because if you really analyze how like things happen in real life, when someone, very organic way of people meeting another person is through like a mutual friend that you have, like that's making that introduction. You can kind of model that in the digital space where like imagine all the people in your life, right? Like from all the different places in the world, from different journeys that don't know of each other, but are able to kind of like come into each other's awareness because of you. Like it's just really empowering people to kind of serve as that source of like human connection, and I'm really interested to see how it'll play out. The other features are like improvements, but they're not large. Like they've been done before in some manner, but this doesn't exist anywhere else, and so I'm really excited to see how this plays out.
Yeah, no, I find it fascinating. I mean, I just constantly have ringing in my brain, like we're pack animals. We're always like our groups. And then, but at the same time, I like to retreat to my den. So I can.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta have time for yourself for sure.
Cool. All right, and we got this final question here. Question number 5. If Junto is going to be like Facebook, my question is, what is going to happen with my private information? How can you protect my digital DNA from being sold? So my digital data from being sold into the black market or A companies. And how are you going to protect me from hackers from ruining my life and my family or stealing my info from my servers. Cool.
Yeah, sure. So this is why we're using Holochain. This is why we're using decentralized technology, because you don't need to trust us because it's trustless, right? It's built into the technology. Like we don't own your data. We don't have a license to sell it to what does he say? He says the black market and AI companies. Yeah, so we don't have that right to do that. And also, Holochain's far more secure because with a decentralized and distributed network, there are vastly more points of failures. Whereas in a centralized network, there's like one point of failure, a single point of failure, where it becomes very easy to hack. It becomes very easy to kind of have security flaws and people steal information. And you're seeing this time and time and time again. Recently with like passwords on Facebook and things like that. So this is where, this is why the technology of Holochain is so powerful, and just some of the few benefits that it's able to provide people that end up using Junto.
So just by people knowing that you're building the back end eventually on Holochain, basically all private data they host themselves. Well, if they eventually start sorting, but that's the general goal, that eventually people have host their own private data.
Mm-hmm. Well, even if you have a holo host hosting it for you, it's still distributed, because there are like many hosts around the world that perform that. There's no single entity that does that.
Yep, and it's actually only you that has access to that data. You're the only one that has the private key to access it.
Yeah. So the user of Junto is the only one that has that. Yeah. Access to that information. So Junto is independent from that. We don't have any control over that whatsoever.
So that means that if Junto don't have any control over it, then AI companies, or you can't run AI algorithms over it to squeeze out any little bit of value for the Junto Foundation. So, but what it does give you is it gives that individual eventually, maybe in a future version of Junto, to run a local AI on their own data for whatever reason or purpose. I'm just thinking of a future thing that might happen.
Mm-hmm.
That serves that individual or that agent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it goes back to that philosophy of being agent-centric. It gives each member autonomy over their own experience. And we're not creating like a one-size-fits-all for everybody.
Cool. Wow. Well, for me, I mean, in summary, for me, this seems like a really powerful program or pattern or way of interacting with the internet that's really going to serve me and only me. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I feel like it's going to allow me to connect to the groups that I find interesting, mm-hmm. And sort of improve my, basically allow me to socialize in a way that I truly want to socialize. And if people feel like they want to socialize the same way, or, mm-hmm. It sounds inspiring. It sounds really inspiring. And I could really discover and actually make really meaningful connections online with this tool.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Yeah, that's encouraging to hear. That's definitely the goal and what we want to accomplish. So.
All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there. Do you have? I think we better ask. How can people help with the project, or how can they get in touch, or both of those questions?
Sure. So just feel free to email us at hi@junto.foundation. That's JUNTO.foundation. Just for if you ever want to get in touch with anyone on the team. That's the best way to do so. And in terms of getting involved, so there are a few ways. One of them is just visiting our website, www.junto.foundation. You can sign up for our private release and hop on the wait list there. If you want to reserve your username or get a t-shirt or a hoodie or be a sponsor or things of that nature, we have our crowdfunding campaign is extended through Indiegogo, so there's a link to that on our website. And then we also have a communication channel on Slack where it's our more formal way of organizing monthly. We started to do monthly calls where we kind of have people from our team the entire community or whoever wants to join just comes on and we just give updates and then open the floor for any Q&A. open the floor for anyone to kind of introduce themselves and you know, initiate any level of collaboration, and then, you know, kind of voice certain call to actions that we may have. Maybe we need help with like outreach this week, or fundraising the next, or, you know, etc. And so if you're interested in seeing how you can get more intimately involved, I encourage you to join that communication channel on Slack. And the link for that is also on the website, so feel free to visit that.
And that was Junto Foundation dot what was the extension?
It's so the extension is foundation, so it's Junto
Foundation. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So Junto Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric, for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas.
And looking forward to the demo and the progress of the whole project.
Yeah, that sounds good, and hopefully we'll be in touch as well. All right, take care.